Welcome to Fantasy Football Today Dynasty. I am your host, Heath Cummings, joined today by the Matts, Matthew, Rupert, Matt Cooper, the Couch Scouts, every year now, this time of year. And sometimes when it's not this time of year, we bring you guys on the show. And this was kind of like when I started this show, I wanted to be able to, depending on the time of year, bring on the people who are really doing the specific work to help prep Dynasty fantasy football managers. And if anybody that's heard the Couch Scouts on FFT Dynasty before knows, when it comes to charting and evaluating rookies, you guys are doing the very specific work. So thank you for being here. Looking forward to talking rookies with you today. Right here at the top, for those people who are maybe new to FFT Dynasty or missed last year's episode, why don't you just tell them what it is that you guys do and how they can be a part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a community that believes good scouting still gives you an edge in Dynasty fantasy football. Our philosophy is that if you scout well, you'll dominate your rookie draft. And if you do that consistently year after year after year, you're going to build that multi-year dynasty that we're all looking for. So we have a podcast that releases every Tuesday evening that you can find on basically every major podcasting app. Just search Couch Scouts. And we've got a website, CouchScouts.com, that is packed with great tools to help you win your league. I would say probably the number one reason that people subscribe to our website is our rookie guide, which this is like the prime time of year for that. We've been doing that a few years now, have had a lot of success with it. It's live now on our site with about 20 prospect profiles that contain in-depth scouting reports, film grades, rankings. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about our process here in a minute, but by the time we get to the NFL draft, we'll have over 60 prospect profiles on there, all in a nice, sleek, web-based app that I think is super user-friendly. And we've got a link included in your show notes, I believe, that has a little bit of a free preview. People who aren't members of our site will be able to see our top 5 rankings as they stand right now, as well as Jeremiah Love's full profile is on there for free. So if people want to go in there and check it out, see what it's all about. And if you like what you see, we're going to offer 50% off any of our annual packages for the first 50 people that are listening that use the promo code FFT.
Awesome stuff. Appreciate you guys doing that. And I know a lot of people took advantage of that offer last year and have really become a big part of your community. So yeah, absolutely.
Even one of the guys on our staff right now was a guy that found us through FFT last year. So shout out Garrett Ball.
I love to hear that. On today's show, we are going to talk about, I think we'd call them the high-end rookies, the round one rookies. It's the guys who are consistently showing up in our CBS 2026 NFL draft mock drafts as round one picks. It's funny side story. I sent the list, I think 2 weeks ago to Matt, and Dante Moore's name was on that list. And about 2 days later, Dante Moore's name wasn't on any list because he's going back to school. But we will talk about Fernando Mendoza. We'll talk about Jeremiah Love. We'll talk about Carnell Tate. I'm going to write the name Jeremiah Love as many times as possible so I can one day spell it correctly on the first try. But we always start with 3 questions for our guests, and I'm going to let Rupert go first on this one since Cooper's done all the talking so far. But I want you both to answer. So Matt, you can just follow up after Matthew's done. Can you guys kind of give people hear you talk about scouting players and watching film? Can you talk just a little bit about what your personal scouting process is like?
Yeah, we love to dig into the all 22 film. Not just the broadcast, be able to stop the plays, chart plays, like make notes throughout the game. And for our grading system, we always like to have 4 to 5 games of all 22 scouted and detailed notes before we, give them any kind of ranking and write up. We just are strong believers in that you need to watch the film and then kind of marry that with the data and get the full picture of the story.
Yeah, for sure. So if you don't know, if you've never heard the term all 22, that's, you can see all 22 players on the field. It's coach's tape. It's, the receiver's not going to run off the screen. You can see his whole route, that type of thing. And so, yeah, like he said, we watch as many games as we can get our hands on, extensive notes. We assign numerical grades to a number of different attributes like vision, patience, route running. It's different for each position, and each attribute has a different weight to it. We assign weights based on the traits that we think translate the most to scoring fantasy points, because at the end of the day, we're dynasty fantasy football focused. And so that formula then is going to spit out an overall grade that we call our recliner rating. And we're going to also look at some data analytics, like Rupert said, that, we want to see how the tape matches up to what the data says. And, in the end, we're also going to factor in things like age, production, draft capital, landing spot, all of that kind of stuff. So when all is said and done, you may see someone with a lower film grade that's ranked higher, or vice versa. But I'd say about 80% of what goes into our final rankings is our film analysis.
Awesome stuff. I'll stay with you, Matt, for this next one, because looking at round one, Jeremiah Love's the only running back that I've seen in any of our CBS mocks that gets projected in round one of the NFL draft. Is this a class that's kind of like, in terms of difference makers? I know there'll be some guys that are rotational backs, and there'll be some guys that have a month-long stretch of good production. But is Love the only running back in this class that's actually going to be a dynasty fantasy football difference maker?
I think most likely, yes. Jonah Coleman is probably my RB2 at this point in the process, and he is big boy. I mean, 228 pounds, great contact balance, powerful back, can catch passes, and has really good burst, I think, for being as big as he is. Not really elusive at all. Like, he has a style for sure. And I think if he gets the draft capital and he gets the opportunity, he has the skill set to potentially be a 3-down back. So I'm interested to see, how the draft pans out for him, and even the combine and things like that. I think Jonah Coleman probably has some potential, but he's not a sure thing. And there's definitely some guys we haven't scouted yet that could factor into that conversation too.
Right.
Guys like Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, Mike Washington out of Arkansas, Jamari Taylor from Virginia, are some guys that I'm excited to get to in our scouting process that we haven't gotten to yet.
Matthew, there's a lot more wide receivers that we're going to talk about. So it's not a one player class at each position, but it does kind of feel like, to me at first glance, that this is going to be pretty top heavy for rookie drafts. Like I said earlier last week, that when I look at the first 6 or 7 picks, as far as I see it right now, there's still some really great players. Like, all this talk about the 2026 class being down, there's still some great players at the top. But if I have a late first, I feel like I have a second. And if I have a second, I feel like I have a third. Do you think it's that top heavy, or is there some depth here I'm missing?
That was my original suspicion. As we've gotten into it, I think this wide receiver class is a lot better than people anticipated. I do think overall it's not going to be as deep. So I don't think you're going to be finding as many, late second, third round, fourth round gems as the last couple drafts. But I think, like, at the top of the second, you're still going to get a quality player.
Okay. So that's more optimistic than I was. Andy's in the chat and saying that he's looking to trade into the back end of round one because he likes a couple of the backs after Love. So maybe we'll get into some of those on a later show. But today we're talking about the round one guys, and we will get started right after this break.
They want to take this place from us. My family is in danger. My wife is lost to me, and I don't have time.
1923, new season now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
We are back. We are digging into round one rookies, and I think we have to start with the not just round one, but pick one in almost every mock that I see. The quarterback from Indiana has declared for the draft, Fernando Mendoza. The first question I think that you have to ask about him, and I'll start with you, Matthew. I see more people saying, does what he's doing in college translate to the NFL, than I remember with some consensus number one picks from the past. And when I watch him, I think, man, in the right system, absolutely. But what are your thoughts on how Mendoza's skill set translates to the NFL game?
I think it definitely translates. And I think we talked about it last month when I was on talking about Elijah Surratt when I scouted him, that I just noticed Mendoza over and over and over again making the correct reads and playing on time with anticipation, which most of the time when I'm scouting wide receivers, I'm making notes like, oh man, this quarterback, is missing open receivers, missing, this hole in the defense. And I just didn't notice that with Mendoza. So I absolutely think that his skill set translates. Like, look, he has the build that you want from a franchise quarterback. He has a strong arm. He plays with anticipation. Yes, they do a lot of, RPOs at Indiana, but look, at this point, pretty much everyone needs time to adjust to the pro game, being able to play under center. It's one thing to be able to read the defense while you're sitting back there in shotgun and just putting the ball in the running back's stomach. It's another thing when you're playing under center, turning your back to the defense, doing a play action handoff, and then having to turn back around and much more quickly be able to diagnose what the defense has done. Did they disguise coverage? Did they not? Was your initial read right? So there's definitely going to be an adjustment, but I think he has all the tools to be able to do it.
Matt, I think we've kind of already, consensus has already decided this is a much, much worse running back class than last year. This is a much, much better wide receiver class than last year. But I haven't heard as much talk about where Mendoza fits amongst the rookie quarterbacks from last year. Cam Ward, who went first overall, Jackson Dart, who's now easily the top quarterback of that class in Dynasty rankings, Tyler Shuck, who looked like he earned himself at least one more year as a starter. How would you compare Mendoza to those guys? And I don't care really if you want to do it in terms of how you felt about those guys when they were going into the rookie year or how you feel about them now, because those opinions have changed quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'll start with Cam Ward because it's easy to go back in hindsight and say like, oh yeah, Jackson Dart, da da da. But Ward was the consensus 1-1. We were no different in that, and I think Mendoza is more polished than he is. I think he has a better understanding of going through progressions, throwing with on time, with anticipation. I think a lot of aspects of his game are more pro ready than Cam Ward was. He doesn't have the arm talent that Cam Ward had. I don't think he's quite as mobile as Cam Ward was. So there's going to be a perceived upside that Mendoza is lacking. And he really reminds me of more of a throwback. And I'm not saying that he's this caliber player, that he's going to have this kind of a career.
Oh, good. Here we go. We're going to attach this comp to your name for the rest of the season.
No, please don't. This is not a comp. I'm just saying, I grew up watching football in an era where most guys weren't super mobile. You had a lot of guys that it was like they're diagnosing pre-snap what the defense is doing. They know where they're going with the ball as soon as it gets snapped. And they're going through their progressions. They're getting the ball out quick. So guys like, Drew Brees, Brady,
that was exactly
Peyton Manning. But I'm not saying he's that caliber player. I'm just saying that he's more of a throwback in terms of how he plays the game. And I do think his arm talent is fine. It's average to above average. He has enough mobility to escape the pocket and do some things, but he's definitely not a Konami code. He's not going to rush for 500-600 yards, and he's going to play within the system, which means he needs a good offensive line to protect him. He needs receivers to create separation. He's not a guy that's just going to go in and play a bunch of hero ball and put the team on his back. And I think that's fine. Although if you're going to go 101 to the Raiders, they better put an offensive line around him pretty quick. But I think he's a really good quarterback, cerebral guy. Probably seems like he's going to be a good NFL quarterback for a long time. The fantasy upside might be more like in the Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins range on the high end if he lands in the right situation.
When you said that you didn't want to say the name, no
I'll
lie.
say a name.
The first picture that popped up in my brain that I thought you were going to say was Drew Brees. That was just the thing that I don't know why that is, but what name? I mean, will you say?
5'5", so he's not tiny like Drew Brees,
right?
But
I'll go ahead and put a name. I think Matt Ryan.
Okay,
I like that.
Similar size, not the strongest arm, but a solid arm, cerebral player, can make all the throws still. But like Cooper said, you're probably going to have to put a better offensive line around him, get him some great weapons on the outside. So That's who I've been picturing in my head when I watch them.
So we're going to play a game, and it's just you don't even have to offer any analysis. You just have to say too high, too low, or just right for each of these guys. I looked up before the show, Dynasty League Football, great resource, another place that you guys should go check out what they're doing. But I looked up what their current consensus rookie rankings are, so where these guys would go if they did a rookie startup draft right now. And you guys just tell me whether you think this ranking is too high, too low, or just right amongst the class. They've got Mendoza in Superflex at 103.
I still think it's too high for me.
Okay.
Too high for me as well.
I think if the Raiders can really beef up that offensive line in free agency, then maybe I get on board. Maybe they sign like an Alec Pierce to go along with Brock Bowers. Yeah, I think I have him currently below that.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of the thing we're doing with a lot of dynasty analysis right now is what I wrote about in my most recent rankings was you find out more when you look at the rankings this time of year what we think about players' talent because we're guessing so much on situation. And right now Mendoza's staring at a situation with no wide receiver one and no offensive line. And that is not a very good situation, but a lot of that will change before he even gets picked to be on the team. Let's start with the guy who has been second in the majority of our mock drafts amongst the rookies who will be fantasy relevant, and that's Carnell Tate. I'm seeing a lot of people glowing about Tate in terms of like after their first watch on the film. Matt, would this have been the best wide receiver in the 2025 class?
No, I don't think he would have been the best in the 2025 class. I mean, from having us on the show, we were really high on Travis Hunter. I still am really high on Travis Hunter. I think it's a shame that he got hurt when I think he was just about to break out. But that aside, I think Hunter, McMillan probably both would have been ahead of Tate for me. And I like Tate. I think Tate, I have him graded very similarly. The recliner rating is almost identical to what McMillan's was last year. McMillan had a better production profile. But yeah, he's fast. He's a great deep threat. Ohio State didn't ask him to do a lot in the short to intermediate game. Average depth of target really high for Carnell Tate. But on double moves and down the field, I mean, he was consistently wide open, twitchy route runner, great top speed, crazy ball skills. I mean, just makes some of the most spectacular catches you'll ever see. And we charted 5 games, I think, for him. I didn't see a single catchable ball that he didn't catch. Just the most reliable hands, probably in the class. A lot to like about Carnell Tate for sure.
Matthew, I think at least around the fantasy football today world, we've gotten a little bit more suspicious as of late of those high ADOT guys, just because it can be so unreliable. And first off, it's obviously dependent on being in a system where they're going to throw that a lot. Second off, people hear high ADOT might be a problem, and they just, like I saw Drew Brees earlier, they see Marvin Harrison. And so is that, you think, just a reflection of the way he was used at Ohio State, or do you think it's a reflection of his skill set and that sticks when he gets to the NFL?
I think it's how he was used. Like we saw a very similar situation a couple of years ago with Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. It wasn't because Brian Thomas couldn't do it. He was asked pretty much to do that because they had other guys that could work underneath, work those shorter intermediate routes. He has fluid enough hips, sharp enough routes to where I don't think it's going to be an issue for him to work that short and intermediate part of the field.
When you talk about the way he was used, Matt, how much of that is the players he's playing with at Ohio State? I mean, there's a pretty decent chance that the NFL team he goes to doesn't have as good as wide receivers as the Ohio State teams that he played on.
Yeah, that's valid. I think. Sorry, I don't know which. We get confused sometimes about which Matt you're talking to. But
the problem is when I say last names, they basically rhyme. So it's that doesn't work. I'm trying to do the Matt and Matthew thing here.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, it's I just we've had so many elite wide receivers come out of Ohio State, and there's a lot of people who think the best one still isn't coming out, the best one from the last 5 to 10 years. So when you're evaluating wide receivers, and some of them are playing with elite teammates, and some of them are playing with Jimmy and Joe that we're never going to hear of again when they're done playing college football. Like, how do you factor in the usage and the way that the team chooses to deploy them?
Yeah, I think that's a big factor. I mean, anytime, especially with these Ohio State guys, you have to like look at the production profile and see like, okay, he didn't break out as a true freshman necessarily because he was waiting his turn behind Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka and all these guys. And yeah, even now, like this year, he was the number 2 behind Jeremiah Smith, who's still in school, and I think clearly a superior prospect to Carnell Tate. So it's all part, context matters. You can't just look at it and be like, oh, well, he didn't break 1,000 yards in college. He must be overrated and not a first round talent. I just think that's a little bit lazy. And for me, what I watched, he looks like a first round talent. I think he's going to be a really good fantasy asset. I think he can do more in the short to intermediate than what they asked him to do. And I think, if you're betting on a Ohio State wide receiver that goes in the first round, that's typically been a pretty good bet in your rookie drafts. And I don't think this year's going to be any different with Carnell Tate.
So Andy had a comment in the chat, and I think it kind of brings up a larger point about, we're going to talk about more wide receivers than any other position today, because there's way more wide receivers projected to go in the first round of this draft class. Matthew said earlier in the show, like, if there's depth in this class, it's at the wide receiver position. He says, anybody else have Lemon as the wide receiver 1? I know a lot of people have Tyson as the wide receiver 1. We're going to talk about him in just a moment. With that depth at the wide receiver position, Matthew, I'll stick with you. If you're on the clock and Tate or Tyson or one of those guys is available, but you can move back 3 spots and get one of the other top 3 wide receivers, is that the move to make this year, or does one of these guys stand out as like clearly better than the others?
I don't think any one of them stands out. Clearly, my recliner rating, they're all within like half of a point of each other. They're all right there on the borderline of what we call like your fantasy starter and elite fantasy starter. And I think a lot's going to come down to where they end up landing. I think Lemon will probably be a little more dependent on scheme. Tate may be a little more dependent on having a good quarterback that can throw the deep ball.
Right. Okay. That makes, go ahead.
And then Tyson has the injury history concerns. So they all kind of have something that can ding them down below the other 3.
Okay. So we talked about Mendoza's currently 3rd in the Superflex rankings. Tate is currently 4th. So 104 for Carnell Tate. Matt, you can go first. Too high, too low, just right?
I'm going to say too high, but not by much.
Okay.
I'm going just right. That's where I have him.
That's exactly where you've got him. So let's move to somebody that I think everybody has above him. It's Jeremiah Love. This has been, I don't know how long. Let's start right there. How long has this been the best running back in this class, Matt?
A few years. I mean, I'm a Devy guy, and it was a couple years ago. It felt like it was a hot take in the Devy community to have Jeremiah Love above Nicholas Singleton, and that looks pretty different now. But yeah, I've been in on Jeremiah Love for definitely since last season, for sure, at least. And he's fun to watch, explosive player, can catch passes a lot more than, like, if you just look at the raw stats, it doesn't look like he's had a great pass catching career at Notre Dame, but man, they underutilized him in that area. He's a weapon on 3rd down. He is definitely going to translate. I feel pretty confident he's going to translate to the NFL. He's going to get the draft capital that you want. I have very few questions about Jeremiah Love. He's my locked and loaded 101, even in Superflex leagues.
Matthew, we've had this discussion more this year about, there's a couple of stats people like to look at for running backs, and lots of them, but 2 of them are how often you break tackles, how often you make tacklers miss. And then the other one is what you do after you make tacklers miss. And I think a good example of that's from Andre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. Stevenson breaking tackles more often. Henderson breaks 1 tackle, he might be in the end zone. Stevenson might pick up 3 more yards. With those 2 contrasts in mind, which one of those describes Love's game better, or is he just both?
He's definitely more of the Travion Henderson range. I think he has more power though, but he's definitely got that top end speed where he can take it to the house, and he's just so elusive too. He's so quick. He's really got it all.
Matt, one of the frustrations we had with this past year's running back class, it was kind of billed as generational, and I'd say we're TBD on that after the rookie year. But one of the frustrations, it happened with Travion, who we just talked about. It happened with Bill, who was awesome with the ball in his hands, but his offensive coordinator kept talking about, yeah, we love it when the ball's in his hands. We have a hard time getting him on the field when it's not. Is Love the type of back? Does he do the things? And I think everybody thinks of pass protection as the first thing they think of. Does he do the type of things that will allow him to stay on the field, or is he the kind of back that early on he may have to share with a veteran?
I think his pass protection definitely has room for improvement. The PFF grade reflects that. My recliner rating reflects that. I think I put him at a 5 out of 10, which is passable, but below NFL average. So I think he has some work to do in that department. He is on the thinner side, so strength and having that good, strong base is a little bit of an issue in that department too. But everything else he does, like, it's going to be so hard to get him off the field because he's elusive. He's got great contact balance. He's a home run threat. Like, he forces the missed tackles. He can catch passes. You can line him up out wide or in the slot. Like, he's not just catching the check down passes and, he's okay as a receiver. It's like, man, he can go out there and run routes, and really, like, it's a mismatch for linebackers when you split him out there. So he can do everything. Pass protection, not his strongest area for sure.
Matthew, last year, most all of us had Genty as the clear RB1 and the 101 in the class. And then there were like 5 other guys who were in consideration for first-round rookie picks. You had Travion, you had Judkins, you had Amarian Hampton, R.J. Harvey. That, I don't even want to say his name, but Caleb Johnson was in that conversation from time to time. When looking at Love through last year's lens, is he just behind Genty and in the mix with everyone else, or where would you place him in that class?
I have him slightly below Genty in my ranking, my ratings. Not by much. It's very close. But I do have them pretty decently above the Hamptons and Henderson range.
I don't think I need to do the too high, too low, just right thing with Jeremiah Love, because I think we're all going to say just right at the 101. So instead, I'll do something different. When you're thinking about, like, you've got one of these elite running backs in Dynasty and you'd like to get younger, and so you're looking to trade for the 101. What range of the running backs that we have right now in Dynasty would you say Love fits into? Does he enter the league like Genty did as a consensus top 5 back? Is he more in that 6 through 12 range? Where do you guys think he fits in the running back equation? Or maybe what type of back would you be willing to give up to draft him?
Yeah, I think top 5 is a reasonable thing. Like, it's Bijan, it's Gibbs, it's HN. I would take those guys clearly ahead of him. I think depending on who drafts Jeremiah Love and how high he goes, because Genty had such a rough rookie season production-wise. I mean, not rough, but compared to expectations, I guess. And that O-line is just it's bad. It's like, is that going to get better this year? He's got a new coaching staff coming in. So I could see, depending on how the draft plays out, I could see Jeremiah Love ending up being higher than Ashton Genty in my Dynasty rankings. And there may be somebody else that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head because I don't have my startup rankings in front of me. But definitely, I think he belongs in the top 5 conversation, or he will.
Yeah, I agree.
Heath, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. We're all in agreement on that. Let's move to there's one other player, actually 2 kind of. Let's go to the tight end. That works out well that way because we got a quarterback, a wide receiver, a running back. We'll just talk about the clear number 1 tight end. It seems like in most people's minds, Kenyan Sadi. We have seen some incredible rookie performances from tight ends. Have you guys been doing this long enough to remember when the conventional wisdom was never draft a rookie tight end because they're not going to be good until that doesn't apply at all anymore, quite obviously. Kenyan Sadi at times shows up as a top 12 pick in our mocks, almost always a top 20 pick, and there's never any other tight ends that are in round 1. What is Sadiq's profile, Matthew, as a tight end? Is he one of these just going to catch passes and we hope he plays 60% of the snaps? Is he a full-time tight end? What does he look like?
I think he's a full-time tight end. To me, what's most tantalizing, like the guy's 20 years old, really 1 year as a starter. I think he turns 21 in March. Like he still has a lot of room to grow, a lot more experience to get, but he still shows those really high-end elite flashes. His athleticism is just elite. Like his get off the line is incredible. What I really liked was that his blocking was very good, in my opinion. He's able to get to the second level blocks, hit the defensive end back into the left tackle, then move up to the second level, take on a linebacker. I saw that over and over again on his tape. So I don't think blocking's something that's going to keep him off the field at the next level. He still has some refinement with his route running. Again, young guy, elite athleticism. So I think he's going to get there, but good luck to any linebackers trying to keep up with that guy running a seam route.
When you're looking, Matt, at the, I talked about how elite the running back class was. It turned out the tight end class was the one that might have been generational. When you're looking at those three guys from last year, Harold Fannin, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, I guess, and you can do it one of two ways, either like where you think the value is or just stylistically. Which of those three guys is he most similar to?
Actually, the guy that I think stylistically he's most similar to from last year is Elijah Arroyo.
Okay.
Who, obviously he was waiting his turn behind Barner. I still have some optimism for him in the future. But he's younger than Arroyo was. He doesn't have the injury history that Arroyo had. He's going to get better draft capital. I think that seems pretty clear at this point. And yeah, I think he's better after the catch than Arroyo was. So it's not a perfect comparison, but if you're asking me who he's most similar to, that's probably it, just because of the freakish athleticism. I think he's a better blocker than Arroyo was, just a more complete player. And when he has the ball in his hands, just crazy, like hurdles and juking guys, just stuff that you don't usually see out of a tight end, like crazy contact balance. He's getting blasted and somehow staying on his feet, and the acceleration to defeat angles. So he was a fun player to watch. Like Matt Rupert said, just a little bit of refining needed to his route running, and this guy could be really, really good.
I love that. I think we need to talk about his rookie draft value, maybe a little longer than the other guys, because of how prevalent tight end premium is becoming. So in non-tight end premium super flex leagues, the too high, too low, just right mark, he is currently at 106, not tight end premium. Where's 106 for Kenyan Sadi?
I think that's too high in non-tight end premium, and I could see that in tight end premium. I have him at 7 right now. So.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've got him at 7.
Okay, so too high, but pretty close to just right.
I debated putting him at 6. It was a long debate.
Right, and the guy we're going to talk about next is one of the guys that's definitely ahead of him in most rankings and ahead of him in ADP. I think in tight end premium, it's interesting because even when you say that, it's not the same thing to everybody. For some people, it's like it's a full PPR league and you get a half a point per catch. For some people, it's a half PPR league and you get an extra half a point per catch. So I wouldn't be surprised in those like super tight end premium leagues if he goes even earlier than the 106, especially if you've got a tight end needy team. He sounds to me, and you guys can tell me if this is right or not. Go ahead, Matt. But he sounds to me like the type of guy that amongst the guys we're going to take in the top 6 or 7, he has the upside to be just as elite at his position as most of these guys, but he's just got a little bit of a riskier profile.
Yeah, I think that's really fair to say. Honestly, the first 2-ish games that I was watching of him, I this is a name that people aren't going to like hearing, but Eric Ebron, I was like, oh, is he Eric Ebron? Because he's so athletic, but he's not the most polished guy. And then the more I kept watching, it's like, okay, he has way better hands than Eric Ebron. He's better after the catch. He blocks better. Like it's not a fair comparison, but I do think, I prefer a guy who's a little bit more polished. If I'm taking a guy in the top 5 than like an athletic project, and athleticism matters more at the tight end position, I think, than maybe any other. Like you can trace all the elite ones had really high relative athletic scores coming out of the combine. So it matters a lot. And I think I feel really good about him as a prospect, but even in a heavy tight end premium, he is a little bit more risky than the other guys that might go in front of him.
That makes sense. Let's talk about the only other guy that I see consistently in the top half of our first round mocks. And he's the guy that's 102 in Dynasty League football current rookie rankings. It's Jordan Tyson. When you're looking at him versus Tate, who we talked about earlier, Matthew, what does Tyson do better? What does Tate do better?
I think Tyson, he just has no holes to his game. Is when we talked about him on our podcast, like I have him pretty much above NFL average to great to elite in pretty much every category across the board. I think he runs short and intermediate routes very, very well. He has very good release off the line and is good with using his hands to fight off press coverage. Like a slant he can take to the house, and he runs a really good slant route. So I think he's better than Tate in those areas. I think Tate has better ball skills for sure. Being able to go up and get the ball, has a little bit better length. But I think he runs deep routes very, very well. I think Tate probably edges them there, but I think they're both really good prospects. But I just think that Tyson's just so well-rounded that, to me, other than his injury history, that's like really the only question mark in his profile for me.
Matt, when you're looking at Tyson versus Tate or any of these other wide receivers, they're close enough to where the one that gets drafted first in the NFL or the one that gets drafted to the best quarterback, maybe the guy who turns into the wide receiver one in this class?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Like Rupert said earlier, they're all within half a point in film grade of each other on my recliner rankings. And so it's really, really close. You're splitting hairs, and they're all like different styles. Like Rupert said a minute ago, like Tyson is short to intermediate routes, like real twitchy, real quick for being 6'2". Tate's more of that like loping, long strider, deep threat. Lemon is a great, like by far the best yak guy out of the three of them. So they all have different things that they're really good at. They're all projected to go in the first round, but when you average it all out, I mean, it's really splitting hairs between these guys, and I think the draft will help us decide. Because I thought after watching all 22 on all three guys that I would have a clear 1, 2, 3, and when I came out of it, I was like, I feel less decided on how I would rank these guys than before I watched the film.
So again, I think that kind of lends to the theory that if you're needing a wide receiver and you have the second or third pick, you may want to explore moving back a couple of places and adding more draft capital if somebody has a strong preference between those guys, unless you guys do your own research and decide there's one guy you really want, then just go get that guy, because it's Dynasty fantasy football. They're going to be on your roster forever. But do you guys agree with the consensus ranking as of right now? A lot's going to change, of Tyson as the 102.
I actually put Lemon at 102 and then Tyson at 3. And I went Lemon because I just felt like he was the safest. Like, he can work everywhere on the field. He's a yak threat. I think he's less dependent on going to an offensive coordinator that can scheme for him.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I actually misspoke earlier when you asked about Tate, and I said 4 was too high. I actually have Tate at 4. So it's Lemon 2, Tyson 3, Tate 4 for me. And, again, that could change between now and the draft. It could certainly change after the draft, but that's where I'm at with it right now.
So we've mentioned Lemon's name a lot. We haven't actually broken him down. We're going to do that right after our second break.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
And listen, I should have said this like at the top of the show or before we were live, but you guys are much further along in this rookie evaluation process than I am in January. So I don't know if I've said any names wrong, but if I do, please correct me. Don't worry about making me look dumb. I look dumb on this show almost every week. The next guy on the list is the guy we've been talking about without talking about him, Mai Lemon. And we've kind of already said what his skill set is, but Matthew, if there's anything else we can add to this wide receiver that you guys both have currently as the wide receiver 1 in the class.
Yeah, I shout out to Brett Coleman. I think that he tweeted a description of Mai Lemon that was just so perfect. It's like, I like my wide receivers that aren't afraid to work over the middle of the field and aren't afraid to die. Like, this guy is so fearless. You can line him up outside, inside. He can run any route. Maybe he definitely doesn't have like the top end speed of a Tate, but he's just so quick and he's stout. Like, he's not the biggest wide receiver, but he's so stout. And man, once you get the ball in his hands, he is a wrecking ball, super physical, can stiff arm guys, can juke you out of your shoes, can run you over. Like, he can do it all once he has the ball in his hands, and his vision's really, really good. So I think he's a guy that even if he goes to a system where it may not be like the most wide receiver friendly system, or he doesn't have the best quarterback, I still think he's going to produce so well because you can do so much with him, and he's just so reliable. I'm really interested to see where he ends up going, though.
So Matt, when I hear Matthew talk about this guy, the vision I see is AJ Brown. What's the big difference between the two?
Well, AJ Brown is 6'4", right? Or no, 6'2". Yeah. So, Mai Lemon's 5'11", 195. I think the undersized narrative on him is overblown. 5'11", 195 is perfectly fine. If he was like 100, if he was like 170 or something, like Xavier Worthy type, like, we'd have problems. But yeah, he's plenty strong enough to handle NFL physicality. I said on our podcast when we broke down Mai Lemon, I think he's the best under 6 foot contested catch player I've studied since Steve Smith. Like, he just goes up and wins 50-50 balls at nearly a 70-30 rate, is what the PFF numbers say. And that shows up all over his tape too. Like, he's really strong. He has that dog mentality, plays bigger than his size, stiff arms guys into the grave after the catch. So he played, I think, majority slot in college. I don't have the percentages right in front of me right now.
I think it was about 65% in the slot.
Yeah, so I think he could definitely win outside. I mean, there were plenty of snaps. The 35% snaps, outside that you saw on the tape, he looked good doing it. And, particularly against Notre Dame, they press coverage a lot against him, press man coverage, and he beat it and torched it, pushed guys off of him, took it to the house. So, I think Mai Lemon is not as athletic maybe as some of the other top tier guys in this wide receiver class. But even that, I hate to say it because I don't want to say he's unathletic. It's like Rupert said earlier, it's the top speed that maybe he doesn't have, but he's so quick in short spaces. He's got great burst. So, yeah, I think he's not one of those guys that you look at and you're like, oh, he just moves different. Like, he's special. But he's such a good football player, and he does so many things well. And he is an above average athlete. And I'm pretty excited about Mai Lemon and his potential. And even like Jackson Smith and Jigba went nuclear this year, and he's about the same size profile. So the undersized thing makes no sense to me.
Andy in the chat said JSN kind of vibes is what he gets from Lemon. So Matthew, am I just not looking at a wide enough sample of NFL mock drafts, or is there a reason that Lemon might be often projected to be third in terms of who gets drafted behind the other two?
I could totally see that being the case, and he ends up being drafted third.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been many times that we've been a little bit against consensus, so I wouldn't be shocked if we end up being against consensus on that again this year. Again, like their rating for us is all very similar. So even if he goes third, I could still see him producing and being the number one.
And it may just come down to personal preference of the teams that have the picks top 10 versus a team that has a pick at 13 or something like that. I think the place that you guys are with consensus, it sounds like, is that the 3 wide receivers that we've talked about are the top 3 wide receivers in the class, but they aren't the only wide receivers in round 1. And when I hear people talk about Denzel Boston, who is the next guy we're going to talk about, and I have not watched very much of this kid yet, so it might be completely unfair and it may be unrelated, but the way everyone describes him, I think, wait, I watched that guy play. It was David Boston. It's just like he sounds like an absolute beast of a wide receiver, almost like a wide receiver in a tight end's body. Is this the most physical wide receiver of the round one guys, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. He's a tank, man. I mean, 6'4". I don't have the weight right in front of me, at 210, maybe 215, somewhere in there. He's strong, and he's not just tall. He's got a big, thick frame, and he knows how to use it. He plays bully ball. He'll swat the hands, push them, get off me, go up there, moss people. I mean, he plays like a big guy, which he is. And I think, he's a strong run blocker, physical, probably mostly going to play on outside. I liked his release against press coverage. Not the most crisp route runner, but I don't think he's just a contested catch merchant either. Particularly, I thought he did a really good job sitting down against zone coverage. So, yeah, he's not the separator of the other three guys that we've talked about just now. But, I gave him a 6.5 for the short to intermediate routes and a 7.5 for deep routes, which 6 is NFL average in our scoring system. So average to above average as a route runner, with an 8, which is a great release versus press coverage. And then where he really shined was I had him at a 9 for contested catch, 8.5 for catch radius, 9 for physicality. So yeah, those are all of what you said basically describes who he is. That's what we saw in film too.
And I did just have a moment of realizing how old I am, because David Boston is, about 6 months older than me, but was listed at 6'2", 240, which sounds about right. Is this, Matthew, the bigger wide receivers, the downfield wide receivers have a lot of times been the bust wide receivers in terms of first round rookie picks. If Boston is a bust, what's the big risk with him?
I just think it's athleticism, really. Maybe not being able to separate the next level. I think because his physicality is so good, I still think he's going to win enough. But he's probably going to need a quarterback that can fit it into those tighter windows and not be afraid to throw him open when he's not created yards of separation.
My first thought was, well, it sounds like a Josh Allen would be perfect for him, because Josh Allen loves to throw into tight windows. But Matt, that was the same thing we said with Keon Coleman, and that
Right.
didn't exactly work out very well. Do you think this is a surefire first round wide receiver though?
All the mocks that I've seen have had him going late first round, which of course, if it's late first round, then easily he could fall more than what analysts think. That happens all the time. So it wouldn't shock me if he was a second round guy. I'd be very surprised if he fell further than that, just based off of what I've seen from every outlet out there that's doing mock drafts. But yeah, he's not. He's a better route runner, better for sure against press coverage than how we had Keon Coleman graded years ago. And my lowest grade for him is quickness. I don't think he changes direction that well. I had him at a 5, which is passable. So that's kind of the limitation there. Like his route running, his technique is not bad. He's just not twitchy in and out of his breaks, not the quickest guy in the world. And his speed and bursts are okay, average. So he's not the level of prospect of the guys that we've been talking about. I would have a pretty significant tier difference between Boston and the other three guys. But that's not to say that Boston's a bad player.
Right.
I think he's a fine pick in the late first round, assuming that he gets the draft capital we think he's going to get.
Right. Rookie consensus rookie rankings have him at 107 right now. I'm going to assume we're all going to say too high.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's behind everyone we've talked about, and maybe a couple of guys that we've not talked about yet. I think we only have one more guy that's been in the majority of CBS first round mocks. I'm going to ask you guys in a second if there's anybody else we've not talked about you think should be a first rounder in the NFL draft. But it's Kevin, is it Concepcion or Conception?
I've always said Concepcion. Yeah.
It sounds better.
Yeah.
What's the profile, Matthew, on this wide receiver?
We just did him for our podcast this past Tuesday, and my goodness, what a fun tape watch. Matt Cooper and I are both NC State grads, so we got to see him at NC State for 2 years. A little bummed that he left, but I'm glad for his stock that he left. We talked about it. Everyone talks about the top 3 in this class, and then there's tier break. I'm going to put Concepcion in that tier. I think there's 4 guys, and then there's a pretty big tier break. His twitchiness and burst is just so good. He can just absolutely destroy some quarterbacks' ankles. Like at the Seminoles route, good luck covering this guy. He suffered from not the best quarterback play at Texas A&M. He could have easily gone for like 1,300 yards. I kept on making notes like just dusted the DB, had like 5 yards separation, didn't get a target. I think he can be a weapon down the field, but he's also a yak weapon too. He's not like Mai Lemon where he can stiff arm you to the grave. He's physical enough, but he really just wins with really good vision and twitchiness. NC State used him a lot in the backfield, so I think he ended his college career with like 400 yards rushing. So he's a guy that knows how to set up blocks, manipulate defenders once he has the ball in his hands, and then he just has really cat-like quickness. He's a really fun player to watch. His downside is his hands. He body catches a lot, tries to underhand catch. I think if he cleans that up, he's going to be a really dangerous weapon at the NFL, but he's great with his route running and his release to earn plenty of targets at the NFL.
You should thank your partner, Matt, because I was going to make you to do the downside on the guy that you didn't want to talk bad about. And so Matthew just helped you out there. But when you talk about the downsides, the hands, would you rather have a wide receiver whose downside is the hands or the route running or the athleticism?
Athleticism, probably between those 3 would be my lowest. I mean, the way that we weight it, I think a wide receiver's first and most important job is to get open. Right. A lot of people would say it's to catch the ball, and he does need to catch the ball. But
there's a baseline there, right? Like you have to be. But if you're playing wide receiver and not defensive back, I've assumed that you've shown the ability to catch the ball at some point in your life.
Yeah. So you've got to get open, because that's how you earn targets. And we all play in PPR leagues, and the more targets you earn, the more fantasy points you're going to score. So that's our highest weighted, like release, short route running, deep route running. Those are like some of our highest weighted metrics. And then it's what I would call ball skills. So contested catch, hands, ball tracking down the field, body control, all that kind of stuff. And that's where I think like Mai Lemon and Casey Concepcion, very similar size profiles. They're both 5'11", I believe. One's 195, one's 190. And actually, whereas it was 35% outside for Lemon, it's the opposite. So Concepcion this year at Texas A&M played like 65% on the outside, which I didn't know until I went into the film study. I had pictured him as this slot guy in my mind. And yeah, he played on the outside, torched press coverage, won on the outside a lot. I think he's more athletic than Mai Lemon. So they're similar style. And the big differentiator there, honestly, is the ball skills. That he's got a 10% drop rate, I think Concepcion has, which is pretty high. And it showed up it's not like they were just concentration drops. Like Rupert mentioned with the basket catching, like there's a technique issue there that he really needs to clean up. Obviously being 5'11", I think his arms are a little bit on the short side, not the biggest catch radius, not the contested catch guy that Mai Lemon is at that size. So that's what differentiates those two guys. But Concepcion is just as good, if not better, as a route runner after the catch. Athletic, like he's a really good player, and we enjoyed watching him. We're going to be pretty high on him. He's the guy right now that I have above Sadiq. So you asked about Sadiq, right. 106 earlier. I have Concepcion at 6. I have Sadiq at 7.
Awesome stuff. I've got one more question, and since Rupert fell on his sword earlier and did the downside also on the guy you guys love. I'll let him go first. Is there anyone else that you've scouted that you think should be in this round one consideration in the NFL draft?
I really enjoyed, and I may be butchering this name, Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. I went into that film not expecting to be blown away, but I actually have a higher grade on him than I did on Boston. It's kind of similar to Lemon and Concepcion. Like, he is a yak weapon. You can throw it to him in the backfield. You can hand it to him from running back position. He's built as well, so he can be physical. But he also has a really great release and really good route running. So he's basically a little bit below Concepcion for me in my ranking. But he plays very well, pretty similarly. He has more reliable hands, but as far as contested catch, being able to go up and get the ball, he just wasn't at that level. I rated him below average in that area. But use him in short and intermediate routes, deep down the field, get the ball in his hands, and watch out. Very similar player to – everyone likes to compare yak guys to Debo, but he has pretty similar build and a lot of stylistic comparisons.
Matt, did he steal the only guy that you wanted to say for that question, or do you have somebody else?
No, I'll shout out Elijah Surratt from Indiana. Now, I don't think he's athletic enough to go in the first round of the NFL draft, but I think as of right now, I still have a lot of guys left to scout, but as of right now, he's in my first round of my Dynasty rookie rankings. Mm-hmm. And I think the top end speed is not there. Not the quickest guy, not the most burst. Like, he's fine. He's an average athlete. He is a great route runner. I think I had him at like a 9.5 for release out of press coverage, which is, I don't give scores that high out willy-nilly. Like, anytime they pressed him, he made them pay for it. In the red zone, I mean, he was a machine. Every time Indiana got in the red zone, he gets lined up, press coverage, just torches his man, touchdown. It seems like in the red zone, that's such a short area to try to create separation in. So the guys that can do that consistently, that really pops to me. And so, yeah, he's a great short to intermediate route runner, great against press coverage, plays with great physicality. We've seen the back shoulder throws that Mendoza loved to throw to him, and he did great in that situation too. So I think he's got a skill set that really translates to scoring fantasy points. And, size, height, weight, and play style, winning in the red zone reminds me, and I'm not saying he's this good, because this guy's that I'm about to say is a lot more athletic than him, but just play style wise, Devontae Adams. Okay. Very similar play style, I think, with Elijah Surratt. So I think he's underrated and is definitely a guy that I would be thinking about in the first round, or at least early second round. I did a mock the other day. I took him at 201 in a rookie mock. So I like Elijah Surratt a lot.
Awesome stuff. Those are your round one rookies, at least as we know them in January. Thank you guys very much, Matt Cooper, Matthew Rupert. Always enjoy having you on. You always give us such great information to prepare us for those rookie drafts. Tell everybody one more time how they can be involved in what you're doing.
Yeah, look up our podcast, Couch Scouts, any podcast platform. Go to CouchScouts.com. Check out the link to our free sample for the rookie guide down below. And if you go to our website as well, there's a link where you can join a free Discord. We've got a community Discord, no strings attached with that. We like to get to know the people listening to our show. There's like 200 plus Dynasty fantasy football aficionados in that chat that just are always reacting to trades. People are posting their trades, getting other people's feedback on it, reacting to NFL news, hanging out during game day. It's a great community. So check out the website, find the podcast. We'd love to have you. And don't forget, first 50 people that use the code FFT, we're going to give you 50% off your first year with us.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Couch Scouts. Thank you, Emma, for making everything work. Thank you for everybody who was active in the chat. We will talk to you next Tuesday.